Bitcoin. How's it going, Steven? Good morning.
Good morning, Guy.
Hey, GM to my Bitcoiners, to my faith people, my finance meets faith people, and they just converged in a big way in Las Vegas, Nevada. Sin City was destination for the Bitcoin conference hosted. Drew almost, I think, 40,000 people. Is that what they're reporting? Did you hear that, Stephen, afterward?
I haven't heard a figure, no, but 40,000 people. That's a strong conference for sure.
Right on. Stephen is going to be talking to us about Bitcoin and the implications for national security here in just a little bit. We met at last year's Bitcoin conference. I'll set him up a little bit. Stephen had a booth last year, dressed up in a nice old suit and everything, was running for office and was pitching how important owning and mining the rest of the Bitcoin or buying Bitcoin was to the U.S. national security. Those that are familiar with Soft War by Jason Lowry would know the line of thought that might be Stephen will be going into here. But how we wound up meeting in person was both last year and this year. I was granted a press pass to the Bitcoin conference. I used to copy edit for Bitcoin Magazine, freelance in a pool with some guys for about 18 months. And that got Bitcoin on my resume, but also got copy editing on my resume, which locally, our newspaper, the Roswell Daily Record, the one that reported the story of the 1947 UFO crash. The headline is still famous worldwide. The Roswell Daily Record hired me for evening part-time copy editor in about 2025, right after that Bitcoin conference last year where we met. And I worked there for a good bit in the evenings. No longer can they even afford the editors now. Myself and another editor were let go. But to set up our story of how Stephen met and what the importance of the topic today is that I was writing a Sunday column, and it's behind me in the Roswell Daily Record on the topic of Bitcoin, the world's first that we know of, only according to all the AIs I could find, print journalism Sunday or weekly column teaching Bitcoin to no coiners, to people, old gray haired people that still buy newspapers was my audience. And believe me, it was kind of a tough sell at the very beginning. But when I was there at the press or at the Bitcoin conference last year, I had just assembled my first 21 Sundays of these columns that was hardback. And I've got it self-published right here at the local printers. And I was on a bit of a mission. Roswell Daily Record, that's the backside of it. That's the front. The first 21 Sundays of me teaching my no-coiner Roswellians. Imagine being the annoying Bitcoin guy that you are in real life, but now imagine being that in a newspaper to where people are paying to have to look at it. But in a great way, I was blessed to get some signatures. This is kind of where Stephen and I come in. I quoted Donald Trump a couple times, of course, and I got the Donald Trump impersonator from last year, and that's how I ran into Stephen because we were all hanging out with the political end of it right there. Nick Hoffman from Bitcoin Magazine. This is a real nice one. Just this weekend, Lynn Albrecht, Ross mother, Free Ross. I wrote about their campaign a little bit, writing about politics, and got her signature. And so I'm really proud. This also has on my X account, Rich and Friends, Susie Violet Ward, the founder, co-founder, and CEO of Bitcoin Policy Institute. She and I ran into each other. I got her signature last year. I have Senator Lummis's signature, and I'm saying this as a setup for I'm well versed in the political angles and how important the Bitcoin conference, whether the one in Nashville where Trump spoke at, it's been in Vegas, it's been in Miami, returning back to Nashville next year. That Bitcoin and politics are hand in hand. Bitcoin changing the economy, fixing the money, fixing the world. But that sort of one decimates an old system. It renders it obsolete, you would say. But now, in the likes of the novel of the book series, Soft War, um, because Bitcoin is such a limited resource, there's only 20 million, 21 million that will ever be mined or minted. And then on top of that, 19.7 have already been minted. So there's about a million plus left. And the rate of issuance is so slow now that even though the first 90 something percent of Bitcoin have already been mined in just the first 16 years of the blockchain, the remaining million are going to take another 100+ years to mine. So they're going to eke out very slowly. You're going to get less and less reward over time in Bitcoin. That's just the way it's set up. With this set up, because it's a scarce factor, scarcity, like gold, very limited supply, is that people have realized Bitcoin is the next global reserve currency. And Stephen was passing out not a piece of paper. He had a little study where he is wanting to bring the importance of getting our hands in the United States, of the United States government and American citizens, getting the last of that Bitcoin in our hands. He has an appeal that he's making to President Donald Trump on the importance of it. I myself wrote a column, World War Bitcoin, that showed how tactical this race was becoming. We've just seen it. To set you up, Steve, you probably have an opinion on paying Bitcoin for oil right now, don't you?
Well, right. So most recently, Iran has agreed to accept Bitcoin as payment for passage through the Strait of Hormuz, right? So that was a week or two ago. I don't know what the current status of the Strait of Hormuz is, but the idea is that, yeah, Bitcoin is a national security issue. Ultimately, Bitcoin will be the global reserve currency and medium of exchange.
I agree.
And that's what I spell out in the memo that I was handing out at the conference. So I don't know if you'd like me to go more into that now, or if
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead and set up, since we met twice and talked last year at the 2025 Bitcoin conference and now the 2026 conference, spent some time together. I would love it if you would recap your political campaign last year, the BBB even, but as definitely bring in as much of this national security imperative as is on your heart and was why you're there. You basically have the floor. I'll ask follow-up questions, but you know why you were at Bitcoin 26 to speak about, what to hand out in your memo.
yeah.
Unleash it now, as if this was going to reach President Trump eventually.
Okay, so last year when we met at the conference, I was running for the United States House of Representatives, representing Nevada's 3rd congressional district, which includes portions of Las Vegas. And my message then, a year ago, is the same as my message is now, that Bitcoin is a national security issue, and I'll explain why. You and I both know that Bitcoin is the hardest money on the planet.
Yes, sir.
And it makes the US dollar and all other fiat currencies obsolete, in the sense that, you know, we continue to print more and more US dollars and continue to dilute the currency, and central banks all across the globe are doing the same thing, which is why we're experiencing the inflation that we're experiencing now. Every dollar they print dilutes the value of the dollars that we're holding. And so that's causing the value of the dollar to go down versus the price of everything else. And so we're seeing things deteriorate at a quickening pace. Where compare that to Bitcoin, Bitcoin cannot be diluted, right? There's a fixed supply of Bitcoin, 21 million coins, and that's all there will ever be. So regardless of how high the price of Bitcoin goes, you can't create anymore. It's as simple as that. So when just on the face of it, you compare Bitcoin that cannot be diluted to the US dollar that is continually diluted. And just on that fact alone, Bitcoin is superior to the US dollar. So The other part of it is 99.99% of the people don't understand Bitcoin, right? And so that's why it hasn't taken over yet. People just don't get it. People are just so ingrained in the current financial system that we're used to that they can't imagine, a world where Bitcoin's the global reserve currency and medium of exchange because they don't understand it. But at the end of the day, Bitcoin's very simple: fixed supply, highly divisible, easily transferable. It can't be manipulated in the way that fiat currencies are manipulated by governments. And it runs on the blockchain, so it runs on this bulletproof network. So
Are you
just
able?
those. Say
Are you
again.
able to actually unpack not so much technical detail of Bitcoin mining, but the scarcity and the 21 million? Because again, just through my writing, I've always got the no coiner and the person with objections in their mind. I love what you said about the 99% haven't looked, because I saw something recently that said it's no longer true they're early. We're not even early anymore. It's just that people aren't paying attention. This has been out for a decade and a half now. But what do you, how do you explain to people at first, say they don't own or understand Bitcoin? What do you mean by is scarce? It's digital, and just copy paste more of it, can't you? Who says you
Well,
can't change the program to print 22 million or 120 million?
right, right. And that's a good point. And so I come at this less from a technical perspective and more from a financial and economic perspective. But when you talk about the scarcity, here's how I think of Bitcoin. I think of Bitcoin as software that runs on the blockchain, okay? And it's set up in such a way that everybody can see the code, everybody can read the lines of code in the software, but nobody can change it. And written into that code is that there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin in existence. Okay,
That
and
cannot be changed.
my understanding is the only way that can be changed if there's a majority consensus among the miners and nodes, which there are tens of thousands of across the globe. What that means is, they're all running the same software and they all have the same database and they're always policing each other. And if there's an errant node on the network, it gets kicked off the network. And so it's like a self-policing network that ensures that there are no bad actors and nobody can change the code unless there is that consensus.
Yeah,
And
like you said, the consensus is the word we're looking for. Is that if
yeah,
somebody wanted to change Bitcoin in any way, just for our general audiences, Bitcoin improvement proposals do happen all the time. They're numbered, they're in the 100s now, to where an idea can be, you type it up and it'll be bandied about and sort of battle tested and shot down for a year or two or three. Changing Bitcoin is kind of like changing doctrine in Orthodox churches or something. It's a process that might take decades, actually. But when you said the consensus, and if somebody introduces, hey, here's a good idea, like you said, all those nodes, all the miners, all the people that own wallets, all the people that manufacture wallets, they will all have to update to accommodate this change. So until most people agree, hey, this is good for me, it's good for everybody, until you got like a good 90% of people signaling we're ready for this change. Just in layman's terms, that is how Bitcoin changes. So back to the scarcity factor, the fact that it's programmed in that only 21 million can exist, to change that, it would be bad for everyone that holds Bitcoin because the value would alter. But the point is that's not a change that would be good for Bitcoin or for Bitcoin holders. So people won't choose to make that change, and there's nobody that exists that can force such a change. So that's added to what you said, I think helps people understand, okay, there will only be 21 million. The supply is capped, limited. And 90% of the world still hasn't figured out why they want some. And that's where we are now. It's running out right when people are waking up. Heck, putting it in a Sunday paper, teaching it, not debunking it. Okay, yeah. Okay, so the cap supply and
Well,
the
right.
mining happening in the governments that you were stepping into.
Well, just to go back to the cap supply, right? So that's one of the greatest features of Bitcoin is that there is a fixed supply. And so everybody who's invested in Bitcoin, everybody who's running a node, everybody who's mining Bitcoin, it's in everybody's best interest to keep the cap at 21 million. And I don't foresee that ever changing. And only because, like I said, that's one of Bitcoin's greatest features. And I will say that, like I said before, as the price of Bitcoin goes up, you can't create anymore. There's still that fixed supply, and so compare that to the U.S. dollar that's continuing to be diluted every hour, but also gold. Right now, if Bitcoin didn't exist, I'd be buying gold right now. But
Yes, sir.
gold, as the
Yes,
price
sir.
of gold goes up, people call gold scarce, and I guess compared to the U.S. dollar, it's scarce, but it's not truly scarce in the sense that as the price of gold goes up, that just gives the miners, the gold miners, more incentive to find more gold. So there's a built-in dilution even with gold, which is
Right.
which is considered a scarce asset, but still is continually diluted. And as the price goes up, it just gives people more of an incentive to find more gold and dilute it even more. So
Are you
that's
aware of
the
that asteroid that gets mentioned in that conversation?
I've heard about that, yeah, and I don't know that I don't know. I'm not really well versed in the story about the asteroid, other than yeah, there's the possibility of finding an asteroid, or even here on Earth,
Hmm.
a large supply of gold that just
Yes.
has a serious impact in terms of dilution and gold.
I was
So
lucky enough to quote Jack Mallers of Strike on this topic. He's and in fact, I've quoted him, but I haven't met him to get ever a signature from him. I hope I do one day. But he describes it as when you dig gold out of the ground, you didn't invent or you didn't make that gold. You found it. That's one of the differences. And if there's enough demand, we will be shooting rockets up into space to mine asteroids. We will be digging underneath the oceans because, like you said, gold is scarce, but it's not capped, limited supply. There's more to be found if we want it,
yeah,
the way Jack Mallers described it. But the Bitcoin, there's only going to be 21 million
that's right.
and 19 whatever out. He said, if you want to get more Bitcoin, you got to invent blankety blank time travel because all the Bitcoin that's left is in the future. It's not here right now to even. So that's when more and more people wake up and realize I need to get some Bitcoin fast. There's only the demand goes up as the supply goes down. And so that's the crux of what you're seeing and what you're saying, introducing to people, right?
Yes. Yes, and just one more thing about there being a fixed supply and only 21 million Bitcoin will ever exist. People say to me, "Well, 21 million Bitcoin. One Bitcoin is currently trading at $78,000. I don't want to invest $78,000 in Bitcoin," and that's where the
Oh,
highly
right,
divisible part comes in, right? So
right.
just like the US dollar goes out 2 decimal places to the penny, Bitcoin goes out 8 decimal places to the smallest unit, which we call the SAT for short, which is short for Satoshi, right?
Yes, sir.
And so you can buy 1/100 millionth of a Bitcoin. You don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. You can buy a very small fraction, which makes it for everybody, right? You can buy $1 worth, $100 worth, $100,000 worth or $100 million worth, right? So everybody has access to it as long as you have an internet connection, and you don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin, which is a misconception amongst a lot of people.
I'm
So
glad you jumped in to clarify that I myself was just curious enough, and I had someone walk me through the process over Messenger to sign up, and I bought $10 worth of Bitcoin so long ago that those if I'd ever look back stories. Bitcoin was only $393. I could have bought a whole Bitcoin for $393. I bought $10 worth. To your point, that I just put myself through the process. Okay, I'm going to start studying this stuff. Now, if I choose to later, I know that I can. But I don't know if they even offered repeat bi-weekly or repeat your
Hmm.
purchase every week back
Hmm.
then. I didn't click it. I didn't have enough faith going in. I was in debt actually, and that $10, that'd be $40 a month. Well, that's a credit card payment right there. So no, I but I did experience what you said, buying $10 worth. And nowadays, a lot of people introduce themselves by setting up buying $10 weekly or $100 weekly or monthly or whatever that. Thinking some, I'm sure you're going to cover that. You don't wait until you understand Bitcoin before you start buying it. The need is urgent right now. I'm going to seg back to you as to, because I've got my own talks and pitches on why it's running out and why people need to be jumping in. But I want to hear
Yeah.
yours.
Okay. So, right. So when we met at the conference last year, I was running for the United States House of Representatives, and Bitcoin was my entire platform. I'm no longer running in the race for Congress, and I'll tell a little bit about why. But Bitcoin's a national security issue, and I'll spell it out. This ends in one of three ways. So the global economy is about to collapse, and I don't know how that resonates with you, but there are a number of reasons. You know, our country is $39 trillion in debt, and that debt is ballooning. To the tune of trillions of dollars a year, $2 trillion a year, and there's no end in sight. And that cannot continue. That's unsustainable. To service the debt, we're currently spending approximately $1 trillion a year just to pay the interest on the debt. And so, if you were to run your household the way the United States government has run its affairs, you'd be bankrupt. Because nobody would be willing to extend you any more credit. And so, so we have all this debt rolling over that we need to refinance, and the treasury rates are going up, and it's costing us more and more, and it's all going to come to a screeching halt. Now, as part of the memo that I was handing out at the conference this year,
Right.
when we met, I created a chart. And Nick, if you could bring
Show
up
that
that
on screen,
it
please,
is on
Nick.
the screen. There we go.
Please, there you go.
It was there a second ago. Right. So this was a
Yeah.
chart that I created when I was initially running for Congress, and I updated it most recently to extend through the end of 2025. So this is 32 years worth of data, goes from 1993 to 2025. And this tells a big part of the story. Three simple lines. The blue line is the S&P 500. The red line is our national debt. And the green line is gross domestic product, which is the size of the US economy. And so what you can see is that back in 1998, where I have it labeled .com bubble, right? You could see that. So if anybody remembers the .com bubble, that's when the internet first hit the scene, and any stock that had anything to do with the internet was skyrocketed. And then you could see that the bubble, the blue line goes up, and then it comes down. And so that's the .com bubble when the market crashed, and during that time the S&P 500 lost 57% of its value. That's the
Wow.
S&P 500. The Nasdaq, which is the tech heavy sector, lost even more, something like 70% of its value. Okay, then some time goes by and the market heats up again, and you could see that the great financial crisis, the blue line kind of heats up and then crashes. And during the great financial crisis, the S&P 500 lost 50% of its value. So those two little, they look like little, blips on this chart were actually 50% plus crashes in the S&P 500. All right, and then you could see that that's where the bailout started at the great end of the great financial crisis. The government starts printing all sorts of money to bail out companies and whatnot, and the trajectory of that red line, which is the national debt, steepens.
Wow.
And then it never ceased. So from 2008 forward, we start spending all of this money, and now you can see that the gap between the red line, which is the national debt, and the green line, which is the GDP, continues to widen over time, right?
Muchly.
So, which says to me that we're spending all of this money, the government's pumping all of this money, $39 trillion more than we had into the economy. And I guess GDP is kind of responding, but not really responding. So, for every dollar that we're printing and every dollar that the government invests, prints into the economy, we're not getting the response out of GDP. But look what is responding: the blue line, the stock market, right? The stock market, by some measures, is more overvalued than ever. I mean, I don't know. This does not look normal to me. Look at how the stock market has just appreciated in value, and it's not based upon GDP, GDP is like the truth on this page. It's the size of the economy, right? The national debt is money that we've, spent but didn't have, and a lot of it was printed out of thin air, right? But the stock market is going gangbusters. Okay, so let's go back to the dot-com bubble and the great financial crisis, right? Dot-com bubble, the market heats up and it crashes and it reverts back to the green line. Great financial crisis again, things heat up and then it crashes back to the green line. Well, what do you think happens this time? When the blue line reverts back to the green line, it's going to be a huge crash because just the numbers are so far out of control and everything is just so overvalued. And so it's just a matter of time. We keep kicking the can down the road. And, when I say to people, the global economy is about to collapse, some people nod and they agree. Some people disagree. But in the end, people say, well, people have been saying that for years, that the global economy is going to collapse. The stock market is overvalued. Spending is out of control. And my answer to that is every day that goes by is a day that we get closer to this global economic collapse. It's inevitable. We're beyond the point of no return here. And so, and this chart, like I said, just tells part of the story. Now, markets have collapsed before, right? We've seen crashes before in history. Currencies have collapsed. Economies have collapsed. This time it's going to be worse because it's going to be global. The world is interconnected now, right? More than ever. And governments across the globe are overextended. China, in some ways, is in worse shape than we are. And so, and here's the other part of it. Now there's a new technology in the picture that was never there before, and that's Bitcoin. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's why, when economies have collapsed, okay, so, when the British pound was no longer the reserve currency, the US dollar took over as a global reserve currency. But now they're all like equally as bad. Maybe not equally, but they're all bad, right? And again, now there's this new technology in the picture where it makes everything else obsolete. So that's okay. So that's one scenario. Now, when the global economy collapses, the world is going to be stuck in the mess together, and everybody's going to be panic buying Bitcoin. Okay, and it will be worse than the Great Depression for a lot of people. For most people, if you're not holding Bitcoin, yes.
Why will they be panic buying Bitcoin? I think I know, but
well, because of hyperinflation, right? Because fiat currencies are going to be hyperinflated and become more and more, or less and less valuable. We're seeing it now with the inflation that's occurring now, right?
Venezuela had a few years back, like maybe even before lockdowns, didn't Venezuela crash, and they became very aware of and dependent on Bitcoin in Venezuela. Do you
Well,
remember
right.
that?
And so, right. But when the global economy collapses, it's going to be a worldwide phenomenon, right?
So people will
And
run to
so,
hard assets like gold, land, Bitcoin.
yes, yeah, but Bitcoin is superior to everything else. That's the thing. So we're still early in the sense of maybe not time. I know that you said Bitcoin's been around for over a decade, so maybe we're not early in that respect. But in terms of people understanding Bitcoin, we're early, we're very early in that
Yeah.
respect. Okay. And so the people who are buying Bitcoin now are going to be the real winners, as opposed to the people who are in a panic trying to unload their fiat currency and buy Bitcoin when the price is going parabolic. So, okay, so when that happens, when the global economy crashes, it will be, like I said, worse than the Great Depression for a lot of people, for most people. And so that's not the position that the United States wants to be in, right? We need to figure out Bitcoin before the global economy collapses. That's really the gist of my message. But okay, I said one of three ways. It plays out one of three ways. That's the first way. Global economy collapses, we're all stuck in it together. The second way, which is even worse, and that's the other thing I talk about in the memo, I spell out something I call the Friday scenario.
Yes, that's what I
Okay,
wanted to
let's
ask.
talk about the Friday scenario. And this is a real threat, and it's a real possibility. And that is if the BRICS nations, Russia, China, and the rest of that group, figure out Bitcoin
Brazil,
before
India,
before we do. Right? BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, South
South
Africa.
Africa. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
And
there
now
are a
there's like
whole
over
host of
there's
other.
about a dozen nations in the coalition now.
Yeah, there's a whole host of other nations that have joined the BRICS, but primarily China and Russia, right? Those are the two big superpowers
That matters.
in that group. And so imagine this, the Friday scenario. Imagine, and I'll just pick Memorial Day weekend because it's coming up and it's a 3-day weekend. Imagine Friday before Memorial Day weekend. It's 4 o'clock in New York City. Markets close in the United States for a 3-day weekend. And Russia and China announce that they will be aggressively accumulating Bitcoin and that going forward, it's the only form of payment that they will accept. Okay. Now, that gives them a strategic 3-day head start on accumulating Bitcoin before markets even open on Tuesday morning in the United States. Okay. And by that time, it's all over for us. Bitcoin will have gone parabolic, and the US dollar and other fiat currencies across the globe will be rendered worthless. And so, talk about worse than the Great Depression. First of all, that scenario will change the balance of power on the planet, and it will just leave us flat-footed and totally in a lost position. So after delivering this message to various people at the Bitcoin conference last year, it bounces off a lot of people, even Bitcoiners. Some people agree with me, but a lot of people shrug it off and say, no, that'll never happen. Or, what do the price of Bitcoin won't go up that much if that happens, if, Russia and China announce 3 days ahead of us. But that is, in my estimation, completely wrong, and it's a real threat. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can go on YouTube right now and find videos of Vladimir Putin talking about the merits of Bitcoin. And we already mentioned that.
I've done exactly that, and again, quoted him in my own plug. When people need to understand Bitcoin or to learn about it, I'm your guy.
Yeah.
Right now, we'll have this available for you later on. The radio commercial here eventually. But Vladimir Putin, I have him quoted. I hope to get his signature one day. It's a side quest. Him and Donald Trump both. But who can stop? He learned it. Both presidents, Putin and Trump, to my research and my writing, have had their come to Jesus moment when it comes to Bitcoin. They have both tried to stop it, and they have both failed. They both realized it's unstoppable. A congressional record, it's a matter, U.S. congressional record, it's a matter of record that Bitcoin can't be stopped. President Trump told Steve Mnuchin in his first term, in Trump's first term, go after Bitcoin, and failed to bring it down. So I wrote that Trump just saw the voter base. Amanda Cavallari wrote years ago, I think in 22 or 23, that the Bitcoiner voting bloc was larger than AARP at the time. And that started getting some political attention. Next thing you know, Trump is declaring to protect Bitcoiners and mining and personal sovereignty, cold storage in your wallet, and free Ross. That's, like I said, Len Ulbricht and Trump. That's the political power people don't yet understand. This is what you're talking about. I agree with you that 90% of people just are not paying attention. But when the president of the United States campaigns on freeing a political prisoner to get the Bitcoiner vote, and it worked, that is changing world politics. And what I wrote, what he learned was that what Putin wrote, what he stated was, once he learned the hard way as well, different set of circumstances, who can stop Bitcoin? Nobody. You can Google those words. Who can stop Bitcoin? Nobody. Putin. And you will see the video for yourself, or at least he says it in Russian, so you'll have to see it translated or find a news article on it. But brother, I'm with you. It's a geopolitical force that's changing things incredibly.
Yes, and so right, so Putin, he's aware of Bitcoin. He's talking about the merits of Bitcoin, right? And so all it'll take is somebody over on that side to connect the dots and say, okay, if we want to get a leg up on the United States and and really turn the tables on them, and they have the motivation, the motives and the power, the financial power to do it. All I got to do is plan out a scenario like my Friday scenario, and it's all over for us. So yeah. So there's all right. So we have the and so here. So the idea is that we need to figure it out first, okay? And so, like I said, after going to the conference last year and and delivering a message and that being my entire platform that Bitcoin's a national security issue. And then after the conference last year, that was in May. In June of last year, I went to Washington, D.C. to attend the Bitcoin Policy Summit as a candidate for Congress. But my message didn't resonate there either. I was, everybody at the Bitcoin Policy Summit, while we've made some impressive legislative advancements, and yeah, Trump is talking about Bitcoin and signing Bitcoin, legislation into law, and when we have the strategic Bitcoin reserve, we're not moving nearly fast enough. Okay, and so that says a few things to me. One is it says that Donald Trump, while on some level he says he understands Bitcoin, and Donald Trump Jr. and Eric are involved in Bitcoin-related investments with American Bitcoin and whatnot, Donald Trump, his two sons, and the people surrounding Donald Trump do not understand. They don't truly understand either Bitcoin and or the true threat that our nation faces. Okay. And so, like I said, after going to the conference, after going to Washington, D.C., what I realize is I could talk to people till I'm blue in the face, but really the goal here is to get Donald Trump to understand Bitcoin and understand the threat. So that's my goal, to get a meeting with the president so this can be explained to him. And so, because anything less than that, it's like, I just need to get a meeting with the president, because like I said, I've been talking with policymakers and other people till I'm blue in the face. It's kind of like when we try to explain Bitcoin to regular citizens, regular people, our friends and family, and they just don't get it, right? And
Right.
we all have stories like that. Every Bitcoiner has stories like that where people think you're crazy, you're trying to sell them something, you don't know what you're talking about in terms, it'll never happen. Bitcoin's magic internet money. We've heard all the
Drug
reasons
money,
why.
criminal, pornography,
Yeah,
gambling.
right. There's a whole host of reasons, and we've all heard them all. And similarly, when I'm trying to lay out the scenario with the global economic collapse or the Friday scenario, it's the same. It's the same. It rhymes. People don't get it. People don't get it. But Donald Trump is the only person with the courage and the power to do what needs to be done. And so once he understands it, once it clicks for him, he will act. And so that's really the mission that I'm on. Is
I'm going
to
to ask you, what are you doing? What steps? But I also want to provide context for viewers, listeners. Is that uh, that's Trump's flip flop on Bitcoin is exactly what I was able to chronicle. That is the period of time that I was working and writing for the newspaper. And the opening of this is his first term. He actually tweeted a couple of times that he was anti-Bitcoin. He said, "I am not a fan of Bitcoin and other digital currencies that are made from thin air. They enable trafficking," and the whole party line that somebody else probably wrote for him. But he has, to your point, he is further along in his understanding than many of the people watching this program. Even though this is a Bitcoin program, I try to target no coiners or new coiners in my work. So he's far enough in his understanding to follow the money, because people don't understand what makes Bitcoin popular is not that it's a great investment. Microsoft, Apple, we all have our regrets that we didn't buy that. But the fact that it's a form of currency that cannot be switched off. In President Putin's case, he disabled the bank account somehow of a political opponent like a decade ago or so. The man started taking Bitcoin donations and raised $250,000, like lickety
Mhm.
split. When the U.S. government leaned on PayPal and Visa to turn off, oh no, come on, Julian Assange. I'm not Wikipedia, but what am I talking about? Leaks, WikiLeaks.
WikiLeaks.
Thank you. God, had mornings. Uh, they started accepting Bitcoin donations when their bank account got closed by the Americans. They hadn't done anything illegal. The corporate banks and political machine just leaned on them a little bit and got their bank or their Visa turned off, one or the other. They started accepting Bitcoin right before it skyrocketed too. Biggest favor you could have ever done for WikiLeaks was to get their bank account turned off, because they started taking Bitcoin and their net worth went 10x somehow. But the point is, Bitcoin did not get popular because men want to be rich. Bitcoin got popular because men want to be free. And when you have a form of currency, if you're a political dissident, the people who don't understand Bitcoin are the people who have never shaken their hand a little bit before posting something on Facebook. Because a lot of times nowadays, the fear of consequence, what people are going to yell at you, or Facebook censorship or social media censorship itself. If you've never thought twice, if you've never gone to a government protest, if you never will, if you know your kids aren't going to marry someone who will, well, just having a form of money that can't be turned off really doesn't make sense to you. But if you're a political dissident, this is why Bitcoin has value. Is that if you're in trouble and you find out that your government is, now they're targeting your family too, you need to leave. You need to leave now. In fact, you can't convert your businesses, your gold, you can't carry your cash across the borders that way. But for the first time in human history, your entire net worth can be boiled down to a password in your head. I wrote, plugging myself, a man could walk across a border naked and unashamed, knowing that he can protect his family still. So you ask that guy how much is Bitcoin worth, he'll smack you. You can't put a price tag, a dollar value on saving your family's life. That's the value of Bitcoin. And when people come to understand that that's why Bitcoin is popular and that it can't be stopped or turned off, well, that's what's driving the demand, is to own something that can't be turned. Even one of my columns is even turning off the internet won't kill Bitcoin. It's just Morse code can send Bitcoin. Literally smoke signals. The internet's a lot faster than smoke signals, but blockstream, atom back satellites, we're in the game. We're in the game. We got our own generators and solar off grid stuff. We got, as long as there's one copy of what you call the blockchain, all the data of transactions, it's under nuclear bunkers in Swiss mountains. The blockchain Bitcoin can't be turned off. It can't be stopped. Men and women, people want freedom from tyranny. So that's where the demand that I think we're speaking of comes from. You sanction Iran and they say, fine, we'll just take Bitcoin and there's nothing you can do about it. That's what the geopolitical situation is waking up to. I like that you included all that about the BRICS nations. So, what are you doing, or how exactly can you get to President Trump? What are you trying to do to get an audience with him? And if you only had the 90-second or 2-minute elevator pitch, what in the world do you think you can say, given that he is further along in his journey? He doesn't need to understand what is Bitcoin. I think he needs to understand the reason I brought all that up, the difference between the asset and the currency, the freedom money to just transact freely worldwide or face to face, versus something you hold that goes value. That's what they're thinking as an asset and a layer for banking all over again. But how are you reaching out or trying to get to him?
Well, so I've tried several. It's not easy to get a meeting with the president, as you might imagine. But my latest tactic was to attend the conference this year and hand out that memo that I gave you that lays out the scenario, and there's a call to action that says that I need a meeting with the president. So I dropped that
and you paid to be the expensive part of the area too. That was really your plan. That was strategic then, yeah.
I had the Pro Pass, not the Whale Pass this year, but it allowed me to go on Industry Day, which was the first day, and so I ran into some influential people there. Yeah, and I was able to have meetings with several people who might be able to help me. But really, at this point, Guy, I got to give it to God, in the sense that I'm not exactly sure how it's going to happen, but this is the message, the mission that's been presented to me in terms of reaching the president and saving the United States of America. And so, when something, so I'm just trying to do the things that resonate with me, So
Got it.
Perfect example is attending the conference, hooking up with you again, and doing this podcast right now. So these are all steps in the right direction. Exactly how it's going to happen, I don't know.
I'm glad you framed it that way, because I often have to go without a plan. You knew I was pitching Buckazoids. You almost saw me to tears just describing the way these people I'd never met until a year ago. Only met them in person the first time. For those that don't know, the video game Space Quest in 1991 had a logo that looked amazingly like Bitcoin, and it was digital currency in the space game that was spent planet to planet. The research shows that there was a guy named Satoshi Iwasaki and a man named Rodney Nakamoto who worked for the company, not exactly that game, but also that Hal Finney overlapped with that company as well. And Sierra Online Gaming actually came out and admitted Hal Finney was their third man from Andromeda. That's a nod to their old lore. But we got real far as meeting on the ground together, and like you're doing, just following a plan thank you, Nick, following an overall plan to go and share what we believe is the inspiration, the history of Bitcoin, and to meet, and to actually just to leaving it all to God. Turned out when I would joke that you were in the expensive area, the Pro Pass, you said, where the whales, it used to be called the Whale Room, I think. It was 2 steps away from what the Bitcoin conference calls the deep, where like only Michael Saylor and Trump would ever hang out. If they were going to hang out together at the Bitcoin conference, that's where it would happen. Turned out I wasn't supposed to be in that room. I was hung out with you there, and I was there for a couple hours, and I too got to network with some influential and share buckazoids. And actually, I talked to. I'm a spender of Bitcoin of late in order to do some of these adventures. So I talked to Ledden, who had a woman named Beatrice that looked amazingly like our character Beatrice from Space Quest. Gave her a shirt and token. But the point is, providentially, I wasn't even supposed to be there, but I ran into you, and now here we are. I'm Team London as far as I'm concerned. And I just, without meaning it to segue or to seg together, I'm on a quest to reach Donald Trump. I need a 60-second session where he can sign the part where I've quoted him in this book. I'm going to have it. If I get lucky, this book itself, there you go, Steve London for Congress. If I get lucky, this book will be a scarce, valuable asset to sell one day if I get the right signatures in it. But how else? You said you talked to a few people. Have you arranged anything like that, or was anybody like literally in Congress or in politics that you met this weekend or this week at the Bitcoin conference?
Right. So unfortunately, there were a lot of there were some senators, U.S. senators, and representatives at the conference who spoke. Like on the Nakamoto stage, which was the big stage at the conference. But they didn't come off the stage after to speak with people. They were on the stage, right. They spoke, and then they went backstage and left, I guess.
And got scooped away to the deep. And a path I tried to throw myself in once or twice.
So I didn't get an opportunity to speak with any of those people, but I do have a list, and I will be sending them a copy of my memo with a message, just speaking about the urgency, because I guess, those are the federal government, representatives who are most in tune. And I would say that's where I have, a promising chance to, to reach the president. I just need somebody on our side for it, for it to click. Just like, if somebody on the other side from the BRICS nations, if it clicks for them, they can act, I need that to happen on our side. So those are my efforts, trying to make that happen and reach the people who can potentially help me, But like I said, in a way, it's like, I think, it's God is testing me in some way, just because like I said, the message bounces off of people who should understand what I'm saying. It should be very clear that there is a real risk that if Russia and China start accumulating Bitcoin before we do with a strategic 3-day head start, it's over for us. I don't know.
Think that they're not somehow on the down low. Like, we're all already concerned about paper Bitcoin being in these ETFs, like a lot of financial instruments claiming they have more Bitcoin, or they're selling more Bitcoin than they actually can prove that they hold. We're already worried about that. And right before Trump was elected, or before he was sworn in, and that was the question, was he going to day one strategic Bitcoin reserve before it got all muddied with the other topics, the other crypto reserves? But I remember quoting Swan, one of their broadcasts, Steve Lubka, one of the head guys there, that there was a wide belief that Middle Eastern nations had accumulated about 300,000. America claimed we had 200,000, but we never actually showed any proof of it. And when it came time to prove our reserves, we came up empty. China was allegedly holding almost or as much as we were at 200,000, or catching up. Is there any like chart or anything that you know of? I've seen charts on how much nations hold. Do you have any suspicions or any belief that someone is on the down low stacking it right now?
So I would say no, only because you would see it reflected in the price. Okay, if some large nation was, trying to stealthily accumulate Bitcoin, there's no way to hide it. Bitcoin is it's supply and demand, right? It runs on free exchanges where if somebody was accumulating a lot of Bitcoin, you'd see it reflected in the price, and it's not.
Well, we're
So
all a little befuddled ever since the ETF came out last year. We expected to be over 100, 250 by now. Michael Saylor is accumulating every day, and other companies are, and the price is weird. Nobody
well,
has any good explanation outside of paper Bitcoin. I agree with you.
yeah,
I totally agree with you. But the fact is, there are large corporations, not countries, but corporations accumulating massive amounts of Bitcoin. So, by what we both believe should be true, that the price should reflect this buying, it's not happening now with Sailor and all this other stuff happening. So, maybe I was just curious if a country might have figured out a way to be kind of buying it on the down low as well. I'm with you. I think it would reflect. You know where
yeah,
all the wallets are eventually. You just don't know who
yeah,
owns them.
yeah. Well, maybe countries are accumulating some, but not enough to move the markets, right, in a meaningful way. Which says to me that they're not. When on Friday before Memorial Day weekend, when China and Russia announce, right, in that scenario, like Bitcoin's going to go parabolic in that case,
Agree.
right, because they're going to be unloading
What could
everything
one or
they
both
have.
of them say?
They,
Like we know oil. If oil was only available for Bitcoin, that would go parabolic. But what would China or Russia be able to do to create that?
well, they would unload
All exports.
everything. They would unload everything they could to to convert it into Bitcoin. That's what they would do. Unload, print as much fiat as they could, or unload anything they could to convert it into Bitcoin if they truly understand. But
If they understand.
Bitcoin is black and white.
You're
There's no
right.
gray area. It's superior to everything else, right? And so all you need is somebody over there to understand that, right? And then they, these are authoritarian governments. They can very easily, make it happen, right? Right now, we're trying to get laws passed through Congress and all of this. And I liken that to arranging deck chairs on the Titanic. That's what we're doing right now. There's this real threat that could happen. Will it happen? I don't know what the likelihood is, right? That Russia and China figure it out before we do, and all of that. But it's a threat that could happen, and we're taking our time, patting ourselves on the back for these legislative advancements that we've made. But if Russia and China rug pull us, it's all over, and everything we've done
Yeah.
is meaningless.
I kind of want to volunteer something that when you first said that you go into the conferences and it seems like your message is falling flat, I resonate with it. I did when I met you the first time. But again, I was writing a headline, World War Bitcoin. I'd already clocked that one on. I didn't review this book, but for people that are interested, this appeared and then disappeared from Amazon for a while. It had to wind up on eBay for like $5,000, and then it finally got like reintroduced. But a Major Jason P. Lowry, I don't know why I said general, a novel theory on power projection, and the national strategic significance of Bitcoin. This is a monster of a book. He's followed by thousands of people on X teaching Bitcoin as a national strategic, not weapon, but currency, something that he knows that governments, and I'm a little bit befuddled with you, is that either they aren't acting because they don't understand it, or they aren't acting because they don't want to start the panic sell phone or the FOMO up, not the sell. They don't want to start the kick off the panic running up. But
Who's they? Who's they in that scenario? You say they
that
don't
would
want.
be like China, Russia, US, anybody that really understands it. Because you buy Bitcoin, as soon as I understood Bitcoin, my $10 that I've had on that I told you that I bought more. When the price
Yeah,
crashed, I took a small
yeah,
loan to buy $1,000 worth when I was paying off that credit card debt. You're right. Once you understand it, it's black or white. But once you understand Bitcoin, there's a phase or a period where all you do is accumulate more Bitcoin, because I liken it. You brought, like God, biblically, Joseph and grain. I like to tell people that Bitcoin is grain. If you're a wise Joseph, a head of family, head of household, head of state, leader, you will be slowly stacking more and more Bitcoin to accumulate like grain in your little pyramid. Because you say global collapse, biblically, I've taught it, because famine is coming. The ship is going to hit the sand eventually. I don't have charts and numbers or a degree to barely even follow the chart you put up. But as soon as I saw the green and the red, boom, global panic, the great da da da. And then how far that is now, I understand what you're saying. That when that crashes to meet the green line, that's way down here now.
Yeah, yeah.
That's going to be the price of stocks, while the hard assets is going to zoom up hard. So whether it's global disaster, global economic failure, or just people understanding scarcity better and better, the more we print, is what you've said, the less valuable our dollars become. And we're just hell bent now on printing more and more and more. It's pretty incurable. Until we're going to run into the ground, I think the healthiest thing to do would be to put a U.S. back on a gold standard or some other. I'm thinking they're going to solve they're going to do their best to solve the problem with digital dollars. When it all crashes and we're in a situation worse than the Great Depression, like you said, universal basic income, you're just going to have to sign your name on the dotted line, agree to get all your shots, never protest the government again. You're going to get $2,000 a month. It's going to expire at the end of the month. There's no such thing as saving anymore. Spend it on approved thing. They can program your digital dollars that won't let you buy alcohol or Bitcoin with them. Or if, just like a car that won't let you start or something like that. But programmable money, universal basic income, and control is really going to be the safe answer for most people that don't have Bitcoin. What I wanted to volunteer, you say this message isn't resonating, or people, it's not that I don't think Bitcoiners are taking it seriously, but when I hear you say it the first time and when I hear you say it today, it's like, I just kind of look up, I know. I'm like, I know you're right. And I own a little Bitcoin. So I think I'm going to be okay. And I agree with you. Everybody else doesn't understand it. And I'm blue in the face trying to teach them.
Yeah, we've all experienced that as Bitcoiners. But Guy, I just want to address what you said about a digital currency, right? And there's all this talk about digital currency and stable coins and all of this. But I think where we're going, there's not going to be any more U.S. dollar. Okay, you're going to be able to, you're going to line your bird cage with your U.S. dollars. You see what I'm saying?
Sir.
Because Bitcoin makes the US dollar obsolete. Okay. And so that's why it's so important to get a first mover advantage, right? People talk about, stable coins, digital currency, right? Programmable money, things like that. But ultimately, Bitcoin makes that all obsolete.
Obsolete.
Okay? Yeah, it makes the U.S. dollar obsolete. All fiat currencies obsolete. It makes gold obsolete as a store of value. Right? Why? Right now we have all these disparate foreign currencies, right? And with each has their pairings and exchange rates, and it's this very complicated system, right? And so if you're in Japan and I'm in the United States, and I have dollars and we're doing business together, I have dollars and you want yen, right? So in order to make that happen, it's got to go through the banking process, which is time consuming and expensive. But ultimately, for a fee, I send dollars through the system and you end up with yen, right?
Yeah.
That's archaic. Right. And so that's archaic. Whereas, if I have Bitcoin and you want Bitcoin, I just send you the Bitcoin, right? And it's so the way I
Yeah.
try to explain it to people is that think of Bitcoin as a foreign currency, but it's an international foreign currency that everybody has access to, right? And so you don't need all these governmental currencies that are A, manipulated, and
Mhm.
B, just don't work as well, right? So
You're
there's
right.
that
I'm with
too.
you. They're trying to implement control and surveillance through these things. They're not trying to solve the problem of we need better money. Our saying as Bitcoiners is fix the money, fix the world.
Yes, Bitcoin fixes so many things in this equation, right?
Yeah. El
And
Salvador, a government, has mined 474 Bitcoin using a volcano. Thanks for that, Nick, bringing that tweet up. So that is one example of a government, but they're not super huge like BRICS nations and United States, Russia, China level. But the El Salvador government has absolutely embraced Bitcoin. I remember Bitcoin conference Miami. That announcement was like shot heard around the world to the Bitcoin community. Is
mhm.
that all of a sudden it is a legal tender currency somewhere, which is it always starts with one. Bitcoiners understand game theory, and it's when we're talking about consensus. Nobody can introduce a bad change to Bitcoin because game theory won't allow it to play out. Everybody's going to operate in what's best for them, for their incentives, and now we're beginning to see this happen at the government level, to where now this El Salvador government has defied the IMF by by introducing making Bitcoin its legal tender in the country. It's U.S. dollars and Bitcoin, by the way, is what's legal tender there. Nayib Bukele, the president, um, very very popular political figure among Bitcoiners, and he was into it right before President Trump. They started theirs, so there are charts people can Google. I don't know if Nick is available to do it. Just what governments, how much Bitcoin governments own. But I know if you
Yeah,
do find a chart, it's going to say the U.S. has 200,000 Bitcoin, and we've never been able to prove that number. That's what we kind of
right.
should, but some of it might be released back because of a court case and seized. But the race, I'm going to describe the way I often describe Bitcoin. I did it. Thank you. Boom. Again to the rescue. Yeah, US 328,000 with Bitcoin. That's according to Bitcoin treasuries. But US, China, UK, Ukraine, El Salvador, we saw mining Bitcoin with their volcano owns over 7,000, and they are ranked fifth on this list. UAE 6,400, but that source Steve Lubka, I believe it's pronounced at Swan, said they believed UAE on the down low was holding 300,000. Bhutan, Kazakhstan, North Korea, Venezuela. So governments are getting it. But the way I sort of describe Bitcoin mining and this race for World War Bitcoin, thanks again, Nick, is starting with I describe mining as say you and I are in a room together of 100 people, and one of us holds up $100 bill and says, "I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 1,000," and the first person shouts out that number gets the $100 bill. That is literally how Bitcoin mining works. It's all based on a random number, and you have machines competing for the number. So let's say time passes, and in 5 minutes, somebody shouts out 328. I give them the $100 bill. But wait a minute, because reasons, reasons, I wanted the whole process to take exactly 10 minutes. So I'm going to make the number bigger. Now I'm holding a number between 1 and 10,000 in my head for $100. And more people have come into the room now because awareness is spreading. And now they're all shouting out, shouting out, shouting out. Well, it takes about 15 minutes to get to 4,678. So that person gets the $100. So the way Bitcoin mining works is the reward goes down over time. Well, now you got 20,000 people in the room and it's only a $50 reward. And they're shouting louder and louder. And one country just started mining with a volcano to get a more voice. So now, where we're at now, compared to the original 21 million, 19.7 have been mined, but the reward gets smaller and smaller and smaller as time passes. We need another 100 years to get to the rest of the Bitcoin. And what I tell people now, the room that used to be 100 people shouting out, guessing between a number between 100 and 1,000, or between 1 and 1,000 for $100 bill. Well, now you're in a room full of 1 million people. Some of them are countries with money printers, and they are fighting for the last quarter. They all want those last quarters because that's all you get now. But that's the gap between what you understand as a Bitcoiner and what eventually happens as the world understands it, is that they're going to be fighting over the last scraps. I'm a little worried about the laws and whether we're going to have to live in Bitcoin citadels and stuff like that to protect ourselves. Have you ever played around with that idea that there's actually a couple Twitter sites like Bitcoin citadels about
No,
having
I'm not familiar with that concept. No.
Oh no. It's like castles and growing our own beef just to protect ourselves after the global collapse. That's a fun theory. Bitcoin citadels, look around.
Yeah,
But
Guy,
no,
it's gonna be bad for a lot of people. There's, think about this. I'll say it again. We printed, or we spent $39 trillion more than we had. Okay, and pumped it out into the economy and built out this economy now. That's, that when the music stops and the spending stops, it's like, it's like a lot of it is just going to come crashing down, and it's going to be really bad for a lot of people. That's what happens when you spend $39 trillion more than you have, right? You build out this system, where we don't have qualified people to maintain the system anymore. It's just, and it's like, it's reaching the end of the line. Customer service is non-existent, right? It's like, what am I trying to say? It's like, we've pumped all this money into the economy, and all of a sudden now it's gonna stop, and it's just gonna be really bad for a lot of people. And so, yeah, I mean, in terms of what I would be doing right now, and what I am doing is right. So I'm accumulating Bitcoin. I'm also making sure that I have sufficient food supplies. And with quote unquote security, right? Because to be able to defend myself or protect myself and my loved ones, right? So those are the things I'm focused on at this point. And so, yeah, I guess that's kind of in line with the Bitcoin citadel.
Took the word right out of my mouth. Yeah, people that are thinking like you are beginning to think it in groups on X is what's going on. So, you mentioned right now your plan for reaching Donald Trump and I guess others to get this message to him. You have it clearly in your head as a mission. It's a mission with an end game, a goal to get to explain this to Donald Trump. But you're kind of leaving the steps right now in God's hands, planning slowly a little bit. Do you want to? Here it is. The program we're on is actually called Finance Meets Faith, because not only do I write all these columns about Bitcoin, I also actually have supernatural faith columns as well that I'll be self-publishing eventually. The city got tired of hearing about Bitcoin in their newspaper, believe it or not. So go from that annoying Bitcoin guy to where I was doing supernatural columns on spiritual gifts and things like that. But the reason I bring it up, one, is you brought it up, but two, here it is Sunday, and neither of us is at church. Do you feel comfortable with it? Do you want to unpack your spirituality, or what you mean by leaving it to God and how God relates to your mission that you're on?
Yeah, I can pretty easily sum that up. I'm big into what's known as law of attraction, which there really are no rules, just, I guess, guidelines. And so, I'm a big believer that positive thoughts produce positive results. And the things that you focus on, is what you manifest more of in your life. And so, despite the fact that I'm saying my message doesn't resonate, and people just don't understand the message, yeah, that's true. That's happened, but that's not really what I'm focused on. So I'm big into, like I said, maintaining positive thought, things like visualization, right? And Nick, if I'm sharing my screen, if you can show the picture, I created this picture with AI that I look at every day, right? So that's not a real picture of me
Interesting.
meeting Donald Trump, but I put that together and I visualize on that every day. And so it's all about the signal that your brain is sending out into the energy of the universe. And so I firmly believe that God's given me this somewhat unique vision of how this could possibly play out, because I'm supposed to save the United States of America, and Bitcoin is the thing. Bitcoin's the thing that gives our enemies the opportunity to change to shift the balance of power on the planet in their favor.
It does.
So we're living through history. This is a very special time because nothing like Bitcoin has ever existed before. So that's why, so we're at a unique point in history where it's like a perfect storm. The economy is collapsing. We're seeing it. Hyperinflation. The debt to GDP ratio is at unprecedented levels. We're currently at 122% debt to GDP. Japan is in excess of 200%. Okay. And it's like this, it cannot continue. It's going to come crashing down. And so here I am. I see it very clearly and I know it needs to be done. And so that's the mission that I'm on. And so, yes, I am taking steps to, physical actions such as attending the Bitcoin conference, handing out the memo. I was running for Congress last time around. I'm continuing to talk to people. But when you talk about how it's going to happen, how I'm ultimately going to gain an audience with Donald Trump, I can't tell you how, right? And I'm not really so much worried about how. I'm going to let God take care of the how. They call it the cursed hows, right? Meaning you're not supposed to focus on the hows, right? I'm putting in the effort. I'm sending the energy out into the universe, and I'm receptive
But are
to.
you sending emails? That's the question. No, I'm messing around with you. Uh, yeah, I mean, I'm a balance. I believe it kind of what you said. The energy and the intent got to at least be there because all the action in the world could be fruitless without alignment and resonance and stuff like that happening. I'm Orthodox Christian, even though I sound New Agey when I say things like that to people. Orthodox, I use that loosely, but I kind of feel like I said earlier, because I'm just sort of side questing my life to get all the people that, maybe not all, but many of the people, as many of the people that I've quoted in the newspaper column, their signatures in this book, this one copy of it, right? That I am already subconsciously on a mission to go meet President Trump and President Putin myself. My other imagining in my head is that if not I do it, whoever takes this book from me, whoever buys it from me, I'm talking scarce collectible. I've got Senator Cynthia Lummis's signature. This week, I also got CEO Joe Kelly of Unchained Capital. I already had and talked today with Twittered today, X'd with Susie Violet Pinkerton, Bitcoin Policy UK. Who else? Oh, I met Adam Back, but I did not have the book with me. So I did want his quote, but that whole thing about dying to yourself sometimes to serve something greater or someone else. I was carrying this book around, getting signatures because I had a press pass, and that was sort of the angle from, especially still left over from last year. But I was also there to represent the Buckazoids token and crew, and we were going out of our way to meet influential people, to give them a token, to give them a shirt, and to just share the history a little bit, to get that little press moment. And when day three came around, I was there Monday, as you. That's where you and I ran into each other. But there, thank you. Look at you, Nick. It's so amazing. That is Lynn Ulbricht, Cat B59. One of the we had 5 or 6 Buckazoids boots on the ground there in at the Bitcoin conference. Sometimes we were paired up, sometimes we were solo. Occasionally, you'd have 5 or 6 of us all in one place together. We worked so well. And I'm just going to say it, it's my program. God opened up so many doors to people you would not believe that we humans should, be able to rub elbows with. The press pass helped a little bit, but I had it last year. I didn't get any closer to Michael Saylor than you getting to Donald Trump. Man, look at you. Thank you, Nick. I didn't get any closer to Saylor or one of our Buckazoid crew. Trench got with Jack Mallers for like 7 seconds. He was on my list because I've quoted him like I quoted him earlier today about time travel.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is, if finally I get enough elite signatures in here that someone like Saylor wants to buy it from me, the book comes with one. I don't care if you give me 10 Bitcoin for the book. If you offer, it still comes with one condition. You have to continue the mission, whoever you are that gets this book, to get the signature of Presidents Trump and Putin. If you are the holder of the book, there's more signatures to get. It's a side quest I could honestly spend the rest of my life doing, but you and I might be able to put our heads together. And if we both know we're going to be in the same place, we'll just 2 by 2, like the Buckazoids went out this weekend, is that, hey, you're going to be at the conference. Next time you're going to a conference and I'm going to a conference, we need to collaborate on the front end. I'll be sending emails to the press people or whatever. I have this book that I just need 60 seconds with the president to get his signature. Okay. Maybe one day it'll crack, man. And maybe one day you'll be with me when it happens. And he'll say, Bitcoin, what do you know about Bitcoin? You guys so smart. You think you can tell me something about Bitcoin? And that's when you step up, bro.
Yeah. So 2 things. One is, Guy, by the time I'm through with this mission that I'm on, everybody will know my name. When I say everybody, I mean everybody on the planet, and it's going to be because I'm going to save the United States of America. That's what's going to happen. And here's the other thing I'll tell you is when all is said and done, they're going to make a movie about the story of my life. And so here's what you need to think about, Guy. Here's the part you need to think about. When they make the movie about the story of my life, who do you want to play you in the movie?
Me, I hope I'm still alive. I hope I'm still alive, bro.
That's what you need to think about.
I don't know what this sounds like to some people. I know you're thinking crazy delusional dreamer, but I'm here to tell you he's found a home, because I'm a crazy delusional dreamer. I got plans and ideas. I'm already doing crazy stuff. People that know me in real life, they know I'm crazy. It's just thanks to Bitcoin, I've been upgraded to eccentric.
Yeah.
Write that one down for you. Cool. I think we're winding down. I've got a certain time slot with Nick, and
okay.
I don't know if he wants to come in, do anything wrap up wise, but I love where what we've covered and where we've been today. You got anything else you want to add? I'll start the wind down process.
No, nothing really to add. Other than if you're watching this episode and you haven't bought any Bitcoin yet, I urge you to do the research and understand why it makes the U.S. dollar and all other fiat obsolete, and why it will be the global reserve currency. So that's really it.
I 1,000,000% agree. I have done the research. I got certifications. Literally wrote the book on something to do with Bitcoin. but I'm
Yes.
going to encourage you to do your own research as well, like Stephen said, but also don't wait until you understand Bitcoin to start buying it. You can start small with $10 worth. And the honest thing that I put into writing is you will never understand Bitcoin. I don't understand Bitcoin. Anyone tells you they're an expert or understands Bitcoin, you need to run because they're scamming you. Um, my poetic way of saying it is that even a salty sea captain pilot, no matter how many decades he has of navigating, he knows no more about the ocean than the ocean itself has chosen to reveal to him, and he will never understand its depths until they have claimed him.
Mm.
That's Bitcoin. We are all
Mhm.
just little captains on our little boats trying to send money from A to B and get where we want to be in life. We don't understand this ocean that is Bitcoin invention or discovery or force of nature, whatever. That's where this path takes people, and that's why we don't understand terms, decentralized, blockchain, game theory. I actually did a funny, humorous holiday column on the holiday lingo you need to know if you're going to be having dinner with a Bitcoiner relative. Here's the stupid words that's going to come out of their mouth, so prep yourself for what they mean. But my point to your point is begin learning about Bitcoin, but the people that have done the 1,000 hours of research agree it's the world reserve currency. It's becoming that. It sort of already is. The people that have sussed that have been slowly buying in the background for 10 years more. Um, out of debt and then back into debt. I've got my one for retirement, which is coming up fairly soon. But I'm remaining active teaching Bitcoin to others. I agree with what he said. Just
Yeah.
teach it, learn
Yeah.
it. And I know I act like I'm promoting a book. Uh, if everything is set up, and I believe it is, financemeetsfaith.com, I will email you the book for free, one chapter at a time. You can, I think it's set up to $10 for the PDF. Eventually, I'll have it for sale. But as Stephen said, learn about Bitcoin. It is becoming the world reserve currency. And if you don't have any, you're going to be in a ton of trouble one day, pretty soon, we believe.
Yeah. And just one thing I'd like to say, related to what you were just talking about, and that is people talk about 1,000 hours, right? Before you truly understand Bitcoin, you have to spend 1,000 hours. But really, there's three or four very simple things you need to comprehend, right? And then, yeah, there's a lot of technical things, and there's all sorts of things you can study about Bitcoin that might take 1,000 hours. But the fixed supply versus the U.S. dollar,
Supply
the
and demand.
highly
That's it.
divisible, easily transferable. It runs on a bulletproof network, right? Those four things right there should tell you that, okay, yeah, Bitcoin is superior to everything else, right? And it's as simple as once those few things click, and you take a step back out of the reality that we're living in, and you say, wait a second, Bitcoin, it really is black and white. Bitcoin really is superior. And the whole reason why the price hasn't skyrocketed is because just nobody gets it yet. But we're going to go from nobody understanding it to everybody understanding it, and it's going to be virtually and quite possibly literally overnight. So
I
yeah,
agree.
so there's no shortage of things to study when it comes to Bitcoin. Now, I'll agree there, but to understand the basics doesn't take long at all. So
No, it's simple. And really, nobody needs to understand nuclear weapons or splitting atoms or
right.
radiation. Um, all you really need to know, nobody even wants a nuclear missile. Nobody wants 5,000 nuclear missiles, or nobody wants 10,000 nuclear missiles until you know that your enemy has 5,000 of them. You don't have to understand physics or atomic physics, but supply, demand, and World War Bitcoin crunch is what we're talking
Hmm.
about now.
Hmm.
President Trump's in the position to say, I don't have time to teach you about Bitcoin anymore. We need to buy it. We need to mine it. We need to seize it. We need to own
Yeah.
it. That's
Yes.
what President Trump needs to hear. We don't have time
Yes.
to explain it anymore. So, at the national level, we need to be like accepting income tax in Bitcoin. That's what is coming down the pike. But again, as an individual, I personally use, this is not an affiliate, river.com. They're in Texas. River, it's just as easy as paying a bill online. You connect your bank
Mm-hmm.
account, routing, and account number, and they'll hold it for you while you're getting started and learning. Just buy $10, and they mine Bitcoin. They're not an exchange that buys Bitcoin and then sells it to you at a markup. They actually mine the Bitcoin themselves and sell it direct. So they don't charge a fee like everyone else does. If you have a
Oh.
recurring weekly buy, you don't have a
Mm-hmm.
fee to pay because they're not marking up someone else's Bitcoin to sell it to you. They're selling you
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin that they mined fair and square.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I agree with you. Individuals, you need to begin buying Bitcoin, and every country that is not the U.S. or the other way around, the U.S. needs to start stockpiling it strategically as well, because it will be the only asset used for payment eventually.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for your work, Stephen. Thanks for your time, both last Monday and this morning too.
Yeah, it was great seeing you at the conference again, Guy, and thank you for inviting me on this podcast. This was really great. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. And whether it's next year's Bitcoin conference or whatever, let's go after President Trump together. Help
Yeah,
him
I'm,
understand.
I'm working on it. It's going to happen. You'll see. It's going to happen. And we're going to get that book signed for you. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you, bro. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Nick, take us out. God bless everybody. Bye-bye.
Amen.